So what we're gonna aim to talk about tonight is how do we run a bulletin board system? So we're gonna cover those, and then we're also gonna cover internet in a box and how do we set up a little librarian to respond with internet in a box resources, especially when the nodes are down. Like how do people actually get access to the information over Meshtastic for the librarian internet in a box thing? So that's what I understand our agenda to be tonight. And then also, I kind of thought that maybe we could take a few minutes today to actually do in the meeting together one outreach to a local amateur radio club or some group that you would want to run a Meshtastic node with. You don't have to write a long email. It doesn't have to be the world's most thoughtful email. It can be 3 sentences, but that's what I was thinking we could do as well. Just because otherwise, are you gonna go off and do it? Maybe not. Let's put some time that we've already set aside and actually just do it. So, I've had great luck with this strategy. So, but yeah, I don't know. Do you wanna start us off, CJ? And you wanna?
One of the challenges with this kind of system, right? Um, this is me, this is my friend. I want to send a message to them, but they are currently not online. And this is just peer-to-peer. There's no server. Um, what if there was like a system where we could have like a chatbot and we could talk to the chatbot, and it's very simple, like an operator, like press one for this, press two for that. A lot of these systems are like you say hello, and it's like here are the options. You have these messages because it knows who everyone is because it has your device ID when you send a message. Um, Someone left you a message, or like you can leave a message for someone. It knows who your friends are because you've connected them in the past, right? Maybe they're public topics where you can share a message on a particular topic that will be like saved on there, right? Like so it's a public sort of message like the open channel, but it's like preserved over time and it's specific to a given topic. So you can navigate through the menus very simply with like the phone operator style, like you just reply one, reply two, and it's going to give you that answer that you're that menu, deeper in that you're looking for. So that's actually like not very hard. A lot of people have already implemented it. All of the implementations that I found run on Python, um, which is easy to update, right? And there are these huge communities around that, but it needs like
What the fuck?
it doesn't really work on um, the ESP32. You can't run Python on an ESP32. It needs to be compiled binaries to run. And it can only run one. It has one compiled binary, and that's all that's on there. So a lot of these projects that exist building these BBS servers have done like custom hardware development, and they're building these very complex devices to be able to run Python on a microcontroller that serves requests. So like that's kind of insane, right? Also, these are enormously expensive compared to the cost of Meshtastic nodes themselves, which you still need. So it's like if you could write instead in C a very simple version of a BBS that is able to integrate with more complex services that are hosted on other devices or not, right? So like if it's just something very simple like posting messages to a public topic, you really don't need a Raspberry Pi for that. You really don't need custom hardware development for that. And even if you wanted to use a more powerful, like integrate a Raspberry Pi with it, that's like 20 bucks, right? Where these custom hardware development BBS systems are like 60 or more, right? So you could do 3 of them for the cost of one of those and have way more power than those do. So there's a lot of aspects to these existing BBS projects where it's like here there's a lot of inertia behind a particular design that is like maybe not the best way to do it. And like if you were starting from scratch today, like you might do it in a totally different way, right? And we have that opportunity. And I think we can do it in a lot less complicated way. Some of the other things that we wanted to integrate with it are the librarian. So the librarian is this old project that is kind of like part of the original library proposal that like the library should include a local LLM at an intentional community, for example, in the forest where there's no internet access. you could be chatting with an LLM that's able to peruse the library and find the information that you need and give you the answer based on the sources that it has there in its local library. Which, if you've read Snow Crash, like this is a huge part of Snow Crash, right? The librarian is there, like trying his best to answer your questions and knows his limitations and knows what he can do and what he can't do, and it creates this like little NPC, right, of like a little librarian that's there to help you. So like that wouldn't be that hard to integrate into this kind of system. It's just another user that you're sending and receiving messages from, right? If it's available, if there is a Raspberry Pi running LLMs that has the software to be able to access the local library. And so then one of the other things we've talked about wanting to integrate, obviously, is the local library, using Internet in a Box to be able to have a local copy of Wikipedia, Apropedia, all these other repositories of information that would be really helpful to have in case of disaster or in case of just like trying to do normal things without access to the internet, without relying on corporations that, you know, may disappear tomorrow, or become inaccessible in certain parts of the world, or, you know, where there isn't infrastructure to have access to the internet anyway. There's no reason that you can't bring all of this with you. And in many parts of the world, Internet in a Box is already doing that, and they're providing the infrastructure to be able to run like medical schools or teaching people to be nurses and things like that. And that's actually one of the big forks of Internet in a Box that you can run today, is to teach people like medical training. So all of that kind of stuff would be pretty easy to integrate. That's already, I mean, this is like a popular Meshtastic node. This is Internet in a Box, right? And eventually it would be possible to combine these into one device. They're working on hardware issues, technical problems, but the software is already there. So it's like putting it together is an ongoing project. But doing them separately is also fine and still cheaper than the custom hardware development that these other BBS projects are doing to have both of these, which is wild to me. So the other really interesting thing that we can also include is MUDs. So MUDs stands for multi-user dungeon. Think of it like a text-based video game where it's like a chat room / video game, and like your friends are in there, and like you know, you go into like a particular room for a particular topic. You're able to talk about that topic. Maybe there are things that happen related to that topic. Like if you're there discussing the weather, like the TV suddenly comes on and it's telling you about the update that just happened, right? Like there's all sorts of interesting things you can include in those kinds of spaces related to reality, related to the topics being discussed, you know, and maybe it's like you're in the library, like learning about something, you're in like the sci-fi room and there are books being recommended by the algorithms that are in there. And then you learn something, there's this room in a building nearby and there's a password to get in, and then this whole other universe opens up for you. And this is the kind of thing that like really wouldn't work on the public internet, right? Like it wouldn't be that interesting. It wouldn't be kind of like exclusive. Like you wouldn't have to like figure out how to physically connect to this network and then, you know, access these different spaces with people. And a lot of it can be procedurally generated. And this is like stuff that doesn't take a lot of power. Like these kinds of projects add a lot of rich value to these kinds of systems and add a lot of like interesting context around the things that we might want to do, like discussing a particular topic in a space that's designed around that topic. And so based on that text description from this page, this is the illustration that ChatGPT made. And it's got like the little cybernetic cats, and there's like people using this menu here, and like it tells you how many messages you've got, right? I think it's like a really interesting and exciting idea. And I think there's a lot we can learn from the existing BBS projects that integrate with these other things that we would want to do. You know, like you have the menu, get your messages, read the public topics, chat with the librarian, enter a MUD, create a MUD, right? And like those kinds of like, I think like especially those UI and UX considerations and lessons that the people have learned who have been building these systems. There's a lot we can learn about, like, well, why did you do it this way? Like we can look at the history of like, oh, they changed it to this because of this, and they're all using Python, right? And that's fine, but like if we wanted to run on the device as like a Meshtastic plugin, that's not impossible. If it's like a dumb system that's not trying to do all of that on the device, right? If it's just trying to receive the message from the user, give them the options that they have, and then put something in a queue for a service that's running on a Raspberry Pi in the same enclosure to pull out of the queue and work on, and then put into a different queue to send as a reply. Like that's not something that needs to be Python. And if we're doing it in C as like a Meshtastic plugin, it can run on the Meshtastic device. It can handle all of that, put things in queue, and then whatever other device, Raspberry Pi, an old laptop or something, has like a Docker container, it's able to connect to the Meshtastic node, pull out the task, work on it, and then send the reply. I think like there's a ton that we could do in terms of like making less complicated architectures that are taking advantage of like low-level programming for the things that really don't need to be in Python, and that cuts the cost down dramatically. And it also enables us to build all these additional rich services that can very easily plug into that. And I posted earlier a link to sort of my notes about this, and it's got like a bunch of illustrations and kind of like a diagram of the pipeline that seems like it might be the right way to go. And so one of the things that I'm curious tonight is sort of finding who would be interested in breaking this out into like tasks and building, a lot of this stuff and getting it going. And I think there are easy ways that we could get started with, especially like the dumb operator that's not trying to be intelligent. It's just like the phone menu. I think we could do a lot of that very quickly, and that could already include most of what the other people are putting in their systems in terms of like, yeah, you can just have an array of messages, right? Like that are waiting for someone. You really don't need a whole separate server for that in these devices that have fairly large local memory, right? And then we could also expand and include all these other things that we've talked about.
So CJ just named a whole lot of requirements there, right? About how do we get these things to talk, right? Fortunately, we are also capturing the transcript of this meeting, so don't worry. They didn't
Yeah.
just go into the ether to disappear, right? But the other
And it's all in the link that I shared.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is, we were just talking about vibe coding like for a second right before everything started, but Claude can definitely vibe code this up for you. If you just want it to write to your, hard drive and like figure it out, ChatGPT can also write this code. And then if you write it in Python and then convert it to C++, even if you don't know C++, y'all, I'm telling you, it's AIs are much better at converting stuff to different clients. If you want to write it in Rust, you can write it in Rust. So if you like start with a Python thing and then you drop it into ChatGPT and you're just like make it be Rust, it will turn it to Rust. And so these are definitely just strategies that are just fine. Again, we're not writing like production code that has to survive an onslaught from every major uh, you know, threat actor in the universe. Like we're writing some kind of basic stuff that can definitely be vibe coded. And definitely be freestyled. And, honestly, the more of them that go up, the better, right? Like you don't want there to be one website about a thing. So we don't want one internet in a box that everyone is trying to get to, right? We need a whole lot of people to host them and count on the idea that some of them may be the only internet in a box in their area, and so they might be the only source for some of this stuff. You will, if you want to have it like have a chatbot respond, like a large language model, you'll need a server that can run that large language model if you want it to be offline. But it's much easier to make a request to a server that's like already on your network or maybe connected via a cable, than it is to, try to host a large language model on a tiny ESP32. So again, you don't need a Helium node to do this. You can just use a normal server that you have in your house that is like pretty okay. Um, Again, even like the Pixel 7 can probably host you a large language model. So, you know, I don't know if y'all know about the like uh, there's like junkyard computing, yeah. Um, and if you really want to, if you're ever worried about reducing the carbon from AI, like use an old smartphone. You will take so much stuff out of the, out of the pipeline, the system, right? And reasonable models, especially ones that are answering a question, right? Like how long do I boil water? How do I apply a tourniquet? What am I looking for need to apply a tourniquet? 1 to 2 sentences, 6 sentences as a response. You don't need Chat GPT 01 for that information. You can use Llama 3.17b. So, um, let's see. I was just gonna answer some questions, but Seattle people are talking about Seattle relay nodes. Um, yes, mostly that's what we're looking to do is have people run relay nodes at community gardens. That way it's like a spot you could go to get information, but also the coverage should be improved by that. If we can really focus on community gardens, that will also kind of give us an idea of the food deserts, right? Because if you put them at all the gardens and then there's big areas where there's just no mesh nodes, you're like, probably need some gardens around there, right? So, um,
I think also one of the opportunities here is like if we can put a dumb version of the BBS on regular Meshtastic nodes, it can connect to the one that has the more advanced stuff and provide all of that, right? So like you don't necessarily need to have all of this that we're talking about building on every device. Like it really only needs to be on a couple, and then it will work for everyone in that area.
exactly. And people have written them. I'll just drop some examples in the chat. But there's one that's I think that one's in Python, yeah. That one's in Python. You do not have to run it on Docker. You can just run it in Python. And that will again drastically reduce the overhead for anything that you're trying to do. Just never use Docker. So let's see. To target concentrations of public services where gardens are far between, but libraries and parks are abundant. Um, I will say the people in Texas who are going to be on your team about this are probably librarians. If anybody is on your team, it's going to be the librarians in Texas. Um, it's harder to find stuff like, you know, parks. If you put stuff in a park, one, there's a lot of weather in Texas, so you will have to like think about where you physically are. If it gets too cold to operate, if it gets too hot to operate, maybe leaving it in a park is not a good plan. Also, if, some kids come across it in the park, are they going to take it? Probably. And
Or
so,
smash it.
yeah, or smash it or any of that, yeah. So, um, you know, uh,
But
yeah.
we have actually also already said that we're willing to pay for any libraries that want to have one.
Oh,
So
great.
that's on the list of if we have like if you go to highdesertinstitute.org or like the link in my bio or I'm sure it's probably also linked on the Multiverse School.
Mm.
There's a form at the top that you can fill out if you are part of an intentional community or a library or a community garden or an amateur radio club that operates a repeater, and we will buy you one. So
Uh, yeah, and we are seeing, people are doing that. It looks like, yeah, there are some other ones. Oh, yeah, meshing around. I haven't played with that one. I did a little research on this, but I think there's a lot of different types of BBS node. there's this thing called a dead drop, which is literally like an actual bulletin board. Like you just go and you put a little post-it note and then you walk away and now the post-it note is there. The end. Um, there's also the idea of a mail server which waits for someone to be online, and then when it does see them, it sends them a message that it's been holding on to. It's like an ultra long store and forward server. And then there's, of course, other things like an ephemeral server where like you post bulletins, but they expire after a certain amount of time. And you can kind of have it do all of these or just one of these. Um, this back in the day, back in the beginning of the internet, there were a lot of bulletin board systems out there, and they were just hosted on people's phone numbers, and it was literally just text posts, but people would find cool stuff or post about events, and some of them would post a forever node, and some of them would post mail there, and others would just leave ephemeral messages. So, um, it was a cool scene back in the day, and it was also very much because of the barrier to entry. It was a tight-knit community, right? And more people would onboard every year, or like, it was called September. There would be like new people every September that would get on the internet, and they didn't know how to use the internet, and they didn't know about the etiquette, and it was a problem. And now just people are constantly new on the internet, and they don't know how the internet. So, you know, you can have that again if you harken back to those days. They are here again if we want to bring them. But yeah, lots of them. Lots of people should host these things. I'm just trying to keep up with the chat.
Someone said, have we looked at working with CERT groups? So yes, RACES is the FEMA Amateur Radio Relay organization, sort of like ARES, but it's specific to FEMA disaster response. ARES is bigger than the US. RACES is US. And so CERT is part of that. So we that is on the list of groups that we came up with during the last workshop for who we should reach out to if they're nearby us and start, go to their meetings and see if they want to get involved with Meshtastic, because it seems like an obvious one to reach out to for sure. There's so many, just in the Bay Area, there's so many. So it's good. But most of them are not already using Meshtastic as far as we can tell.
Yeah. Resources on connecting solar plus battery to power devices. Yeah, there's a bunch. I'll drop the link. Oh, no, that's not it. I'll drop the multiverse link again. There we go. There it is. There's a lot of resources on that little link that I just dropped. So, let's see. Sorry. Catching up. Yeah, a neighborhood Usenet that connected to a BBS. Very nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. You know, solar it's tricky because of your area. California, I feel like the air is clear and there's a lot of sunny days, so it makes a lot of sense. For Seattle, it's a lot less sun for a lot more of the year. Also, you get more extreme temperature swings, and so the batteries don't work as well in the serious cold. And then, I mean, it's the same in Texas. Like, also a tornado might hit you, and so um, things like a solar buoy with a balloon have been proposed by some researchers, and I think it's doable in some areas of the country where there's not like a lot of serious windstorms, but like probably not going to work in, for example, Texas, So, it's really going to be, and that's sort of the thing, especially if those of you who are software engineers, now you're dealing with the elements and the physical world and everything's not abstract and it's not just retry logic. It's like birds and squirrels getting involved. So this is probably a new area of exploration for some folks. Just remember, you know, the machine does what you tell it, but the physical device is subject to the real world, and it has its own whims, and so.
But so like the other thing though is like if you just put like the kit that we are giving out, if you just put that like on the wall and plug it in, like it will work. And if the power goes out, the battery will still work for a couple days, right? So like most disasters, like if the power is out for more than a couple of days, like probably you're leaving, right? So like for the time frame that we really need to make sure that they would keep working, like the battery will last that long. And then, you know, even if you just have to plug it in, it's relying on the power grid, but like if the power grid is gone for days, like communication is probably not going to help in that situation, right? It's time to go.
Yeah.
It's like the
And
water is going to stop, and you know.
yeah, exactly. But in the, you know, incidents of the network goes down, but it's not because of a disaster, it's on purpose. But you still have power. In those situations, like it's not going to be too much of a problem either. So, um, you know, it's unlikely that they'll disrupt power as like a tactic because it just causes unrest. Um, Shane asks if there's an interop layer between a lot of the various mesh things. It's an archipelago. You can't, it's not, there's not really an interop layer. Like, Meshtastic kind of is an interop layer, but it's really that a bunch of different small subnets are using one encryption key with a bunch of channels underneath. We kind of set everybody up on the public channel that's just on the like unencrypted long fast. And so if you're on that one, that's like the main thing that's tracked on MeshMap. But if you want to have like a, you know, a subnet for just your friends or something like that, you would just use a different encryption key at the top level, the mesh key. And so there's many meshes, and meshes can mesh together. And that's the other thing about Meshtastic is like if I have a little subnet for my friends, but you want to send a message across my subnet to another subnet over here, and we don't share a key with you, it's fine. It'll still forward it as long as you set the message hop number to high enough to get across my network. So, that that part of it is pretty cool. There are ways to like not accept those packets. And so, you know, some of the projects like the alternate non-Meshtastic firmware projects don't necessarily interoperate. But they're all on the same strata, you know, the 915 megahertz band. So yeah. Does that hopefully answer that question? Um, yeah.
Someone said I'm typing too loud. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm working on my sound issues, okay?
Streaming is hard. Yeah.
Someone asked about the other alternatives to Meshtastic. The difference between like there are lots of alternatives to Meshtastic, but Meshtastic is like the vast majority of LoRa nodes. So
Mhm.
if you want to reach the vast majority of people that are using LoRa, then you got to be on Meshtastic. But BBS actually would be a perfect way to bridge those different systems. So that's another good example of something that we could integrate into this is that like the people, which direction is it? The people who you're sending and receiving messages from through the BBS could be on a different software and not Meshtastic. That would be totally possible.
Mhm. And it uses a bunch of open stuff, like I think it's just AES 256, and so it's really a protocol, right? Meshtastic is like TCP/IP. That's the layer that it sits at. Um, and then, you know, the cables and stuff like that, that's like the LoRa part. Yeah, you know. And if you don't know what TCP/IP is, it's the thing that makes the internet so that some places can go down and the whole internet stays up. So, yeah.
It's like a connection protocol for transfers.
Yeah. Sort of transport. Let's see.
Transport.
Yeah, and so, Jacob brings up like there's a lot of low cost nodes, and yeah, if you just deploy a lot of nodes in a network, the network will be more robust. We're giving out like one per community because, we can only get so many, but if you want to make the area more robust, getting a few more Heltech T-beams, or no, Heltech is a different thing, and then there's the LilyGo T-beam. So Heltechs or T-beams, if you get those, you'll be making it more robust. The ones that are going to go out are just raw Meshtastic nodes. The internet in a box just will require different hardware. You'll need something with a little bit more space on it, and you'll need something that can run a little tiny web server. Again, though, you can use an old smartphone for some of these things, if it's large enough, or a Raspberry Pi 4 or something like that, whatever it is you want to actually use. So. But yeah, you can't run it on just an ESP32 very easily. So um
Couple of people have asked about using other devices like the Pico or the Raspberry Pi 4. This is all very much a work in progress. So like there was just a major discovery made about like why a bunch of radios were not working correctly that should it seem like they should be working for this software, and they discovered it's because they have analog crystals that aren't temperature sensitive, so the actual like clock in the chip is affected by temperature, and so when the chip heats up, the frequency is wrong, and it's not able to correctly understand the packets. And so like that was like just discovered, and so Meshtastic is working on fixing that so that more radios will be able to be supported. But like this is all very much still a work in progress. We are at a point where like we can do a lot, and like a lot of it will work. As we start pushing the boundaries of what's possible, we're going to discover things that don't work, and people are going to figure out solutions for that. So that's very much something that's currently being worked on. But there is an official implementation of Meshtastic that will run now on Linux, including Raspberry Pi. But it's not totally clear like which radios will work for that. Because a lot of the radios were designed to work for a different LoRa protocol. And so it's still something that's being figured out. And if you read the Meshtastic documentation, they have a lot more info on that, including links to videos where they talk in a lot more detail about this and other problems they're working on.
Trey asks about Nextel push to talk on the phones. My recommendation for that would be ATAC, Android Tactical Assault Kit. It's basically an app that sits on any any mesh service, which it can use Meshtastic. And then it's able to send some stuff. It can send text, or sorry, not text, or it can send text, but it can also send some audio. And it can do store and forward of like little bursts of audio so that you can have walkie-talkie like access. But yeah, it's, streaming audio is actually really hard, just to build. I worked on an app called Boxer once, and it's really hard to build. So you're unlikely to get full like streaming audio push to talk, but you can probably get some like short voice notes sent back and forth. Some Cody's talking about running nodes off of light bulbs, and that is just cool. It's just really cool. I want to see some videos about that because that seems really cool.
I will show some off when I get some good videos of them. But basically, the Amazon ones are really easy. And if you pop open some of the smart light bulbs, you can just kind of parasitically connect to their 3.3 volt and then run whatever you want off of it. So if you've got smart bulbs lying around, you can actually use them to power a Meshtastic node if people don't notice the weird shadow.
Okay. I did get a smart light bulb on accident because I was trying to do a thing with it. Or I was trying to fix my actual lights. And then I was like, oh no, this is the wrong size and it's a smart light bulb. I don't know if I want a smart light bulb in my house because I'm paranoid. And then I was like, why does it have Laura? And then kind of abandoned it. And now I'm like, wait, there's something I could do with that. So now I'm very like, I'm gonna need links. Um, so okay. Um, so great segue. How can we get involved in the library project, the Internet in a Box project? All right, so there's the internetinabox.org is the website. And it does have the actual stuff that you will need to buy. They have like worked on that. Like yeah. Sorry, one second. I lost my spot. But anyway, the Internet in a Box project, they have a bunch of stuff linked on their website about you can download all of the stuff, like the most recent build of things. You can install it onto Raspberry Pi, Ubuntu, Mint, Debian. There are other, I'm sure, ways to deploy it to something. Like as you can see though, it does require like Linux. It's somewhat heavy. It's pretty, it's also a lot of materials. It's like all of Wikipedia and a bunch of videos and a number of applications. So if you're wanting to run one of those, they do have, where is the link to put the internet in a box? They really just mostly say Raspberry Pi, but there's also the open source software is here. So if you want to have
They
your
also
own, go
they
ahead.
have an image you can download to run it on the Pi 0W2. And they
Okay.
recommend the little battery backpack. So it makes it very easy. I would love to just have a LoRa hat that sits on the top of it, and then this is all you need. But the current LoRa hats don't work, so they're working on figuring that out.
Yeah, and so that's actually very important to note. You can't just put a hat on a Pi. You do need like a specific set of nodes that will work, um, or radios that will work. Uh, which is why we recommend having like one of the little Heltecs, and then maybe connect it with a wire, a serial wire or something like that, so that you can communicate over the serial port.
Or just USB. Yeah.
Yeah, or use USB. Oh, nice. There's one coming out of Japan for the Pi Zero. Nice. Um, let's see. I'm just like going back.
Someone asked about weatherproofing. You can like literally just put it in a Ziploc. Like at Burning Man, if we have like power cords going together, like tie it in a knot, put it in two Ziplocs is fine. Or you can get like a fancy enclosure, or you can 3D print something. It depends on the environment. Like if you're in Sacramento, where it's like 115 degrees all summer, like it needs to be ventilated. You're probably still gonna encounter issues like with overheating. Depending on where you are, like if it's too cold, you cannot use lithium-ion batteries if it's freezing temperatures. They will explode, right? Like that's super dangerous. So there are other types of batteries that you could use in the cold. It just depends a lot on the circumstances, but there's always an option for a different kind of enclosure. And again, like worst case scenario, if you don't want to set up a complicated battery setup in the cold, you can just plug it in too.
Setting up a smart bulb in each park here in town. You know, I can't uh officially say that you should do that, but that sure seems like a really interesting way to have free power.
Very cyberpunk.
It's very cyberpunk. It's extremely cyberpunk. I'm not encouraging you. I'm just saying that I would be really impressed if somebody did that.
Even like giving free light bulbs to local businesses that are LED that have Meshtastic nodes built into them, right? Like lots of things you could do.
Yeah, actually, they're pretty good weatherproof boxes too, because they want to keep the books dry. So, um, Liz asks, how does Internet in a Box link up to Meshtastic? Yeah, it's basically just a a client exactly that has access to an AI or vice versa. And then it's usually connected via wire. So, the serial interface is pretty good for data transfer. It's fast. You can put text over it. And then you don't have to deal with having a Wi-Fi router that the two things can talk to or anything like that. It might be useful to have a Wi-Fi router because like phones can use it, and then you could have the internet in a box be available to local phones. But that's uh, sort of two different things, setting up. So, yeah, but you only need the radio, right? And then, yeah, the AI is just acting as a chatbot. It would really just be a thing that receives a request, routes the request over to the server that has the chatbot. The chatbot requests stuff from IAB, assembles the response, and then sends the response out to the network. I don't know if that hand-based architecture diagram was helpful. Um, but yeah, and then a lot of people are mentioning the CERT groups. I'm thrilled to have folks getting involved with those. Again, the goal of a lot of this stuff is there's a lot of networks of resources that if they could be made available to people during an emergency, um, would materially change the survivability of that community during the emergency. It's resources, information, maps also. People, I don't know. I don't remember how to get anywhere. If the map server goes down, I'm toast, y'all. So, I need to have maps on my, I download them to my phone, but like, does everyone have the presence and paranoia of a mind to do that? Probably not. So having the map server up for those who are unprepared can be meaningful.
And that's another good example where like a chat interface would be fine. Like if you just needed directions for how to get somewhere, it could text you the answer and get it from the OpenStreetMaps that's also hosted on here.
Yeah, exactly. You can get all the maps for your area in like less than a gig. So, um, the other thing is the part of this is let's get this group of people who are fervent enough to want to do organizing to go to your local groups, connect with them, offer your nerd tech skills that they probably do not have on board, enable them, and also serve as an interface between that group and maybe other groups who are doing similar types of work. Just having a starting place of like, I'm gonna get you connectivity, that's what I'm doing here, will help you to do other organizing, and they're gonna give you more responsibilities if you show up and you run a Meshtastic node. They're gonna be like, great, thanks, and can you also, and that's how you get actually involved. If you really want to make that difference, and you're like mad about everything that comes up on your For You feed, um, connecting with your local groups is going to be important. But I find if I don't have an agenda, I'm just like, hello, I'm here to help, I guess. I can't even do it. I cannot reach out. Hi, I want to help. I can't. I need there to be an agenda, a reason, and something that only I can bring, or that only me and a few people can bring to the thing, because I'm that kind of nerd. So, and I suspect many of you are as well. So.
Someone asked, is there a master Git repo for this group? Our public website is now a public repo, and anyone can go in there and edit things, submit pull requests, obviously. But it's already linked to everything. It's got all the notes from all the workshops. It's going to have all the videos, and so all the different topics are kind of linked to everywhere that it's related, and that's sort of like the centerpiece of. I'm sure we'll do these things in other repos, but it'll be linked there. So there's not more to, like, we don't have notes outside of what's on the website essentially, and that's all editable. And one of the big things that I want to do with like giving people all these nodes is put the description of the node to be a short URL to they'll have like a page about the node on the website where they can have like their own website basically about the project where they're hosting the node. So like if it's a library, here's the story of why this library wants to have this node, and like there's a picture of it, and like when you view the list of nodes that you can see nearby you, you'll see that link and you'll be able to like, oh, there's a volunteer opportunity, or like, oh, I can donate to that project if it's a community garden or whatever kind of project it is. So kind of also connecting the nodes and the projects that the nodes are related to the website in the same repo, kind of the plan.
Events mailbox says it would be nice if people could just buy a no-code kit, shopping list plus basic instructions online, put the thing together, plug it in somewhere. And like, yeah, there are some, the health tech, health tech is available on not Amazon. You really just need the model number, health tech v3. You can also go to LilyGo. Would be a good source for a finished thing. And then if you want to get an internet in a box that's pretty much done for you, Raspberry Pi 4. It's got a lot of space, it's got a lot of power. You don't have to think about making it work with the lowest possible technology. It's pretty plug and play. You'll have to follow some directions, but again, most AIs can kind of walk you through those directions, especially if you just copy and paste the README and you're like, can you make this non-techie understandable for me? It will like re-describe exactly what is happening.
Can you spell that Willygo, whatever it was?
Oh, LilyGo, Lily.
Lily.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's the T deck. The LilyGo T deck has, especially if you flash the nice UI on it, it has like a keyboard and that kind of stuff. So it's like ready to go out of the box. And then you can just send stuff.
Since we started this meeting, we have raised over $3,000 on the GoFundMe.
What?
Like wild. So people are really into this. All of that money is restricted to buying nodes for you. So please apply for a node so we can send you one.
Yes.
That's all we are allowed to spend this money on. So
Yes.
And post the link in the chat.
It's yeah, please apply for a node here. There's a link.
Donation link.
Yeah. Here's the donation link. If you
I
want.
tried to on my phone earlier and it crapped out on me.
Yeah, no worries. And also, a collection of links, like the call to action, those are all going to be here. Let's see. All right. You got a template. Ray's got a template email ready to reach out to orgs. That might be really helpful for other people who maybe have not done this outreach before. So if you have applied for a node, what I want to do for about 10 minutes is literally send the email to the people about where you would put this node. Is it going to be at a community garden? Is it going to be at a library? Is it going to be at an intentional community? We're going to prioritize those over houses, but we're raising tons of cash to get everyone nodes, so maybe we'll be covering houses. It's also, there'll probably be some spots where if we don't put a thing at a house, there won't be a bridge to, and so, but yeah, so, Ray, why don't you share that template in the chat? That would be really helpful. And then I've dropped this link in here a whole bunch of times. There are a bunch of Meshtastic groups in your area. If you have not already written an email, Ray is about to share a template, hopefully. And then really all you want to do is send an email. And this can be a very simple email. Hey, I'm starting to build out or deploy Meshtastic nodes for community resilience. Can I put a Meshtastic node at your community garden? We want to offer free information and coverage of emergency communications in case the grid goes down. Community garden people will get that, right? Talk about its resilience in case the grid goes down, and not just like, I am technology, here to bring technology to your not technology thing. Lean on the I'm doing community resilience, community work thing. But honestly, it's really just, hey, I'm doing this thing. Is there a way I could get involved? I could place a node there. Won't require a lot. I'll put up a solar panel. If it's at a library, they'll probably let you plug it in. But yeah, so just identify one group, especially if you already had a group in mind when you applied for the node.
Devices like the Heltec T114 and others that have an NRF 5280 chipset
Mm-hmm.
are super energy efficient. If you need off-grid nodes, they're much more energy efficient than ESP42. So that's something to take into account also.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting avatar.
For example, I run my node on a 2000 milliamp battery, and it's been running for a week straight without charging it.
Wow.
That's pretty good. So what was the name of that board one more time?
Let me type it.
Oh yeah, thanks. That helps. Ray, if it won't let you paste the whole thing into the chat, you could paste it into a paste bin.
Someone on TikTok asked if there's recommended hardware. We have a build list for the different types of nodes that we recommend, which is in the High Desert Institute website. If you click on Cyberpony Express, which is linked in my bio and on all the pages of links. But you just click on Cyberpony Express, and then there's a build list.
Yeah.
And we would love to update that if people have suggestions for updating. You can actually just edit the page. If you go to the page at the bottom, there's an option to edit the page, and you can change it.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, yeah, Heltec T114 or any Meshtastic node with the NRF 5280 chipset. It's actually very helpful. Yeah, thanks. So, oh, nice. Some really advanced like DIY things. If you're less technical and you're wanting to get into sort of use this as one of those cool projects that you could do to like motivate yourself to get more into tech, you don't have to do the DIY nodes. I would say go for the easiest one. Apply for us to send you one. It's going to be a lot easier. You want to get one shipped, and then you'll feel good and like you can ship a node and you can care for one node. Once you get there, then you can branch off into the DIY world. I really would not recommend super DIYing your very first node if you're not already, super elite hacker already.
Unless it's one like this.
Yeah.
Like if it's your first one and like it's your only one, honestly, get one. Like get the T-Tech, the
Get the
T-Tech
T-Tech.
Plus. You don't have. It's very easy. It does everything. and then you can accumulate more.
Um, with paste.sh, you just say just put any text in there and then click anywhere outside of the main place where you put text and the URL will change. And then that URL is, you can just drop that URL in the chat.
Yeah, that SenseCap one is like credit card size tracker with a 2-day battery life. It's like that could be creepy. Or you could use it as a repeater, you know.
Yeah. For external radios, there's two types of TDEX, one with the antenna thing on the bottom or on the back. This is really good for whip antennas, but it's kind of a pain if you want to put it in your pocket. We've got other ones that have an antenna on the top. They're less of a pain if you want to put it in your pocket, but then you've just got this thing sticking off the top and like, you know, it's fine. It's just like you might want a really nice one. And so this is great though for like I'm walking around the city and I just want Meshtastic to be there. So I do recommend either one of these. The other, this is the LilyGo 915. I don't know.
The one
This
on the back is actually not an antenna. It's a 1/4-inch mounting. So like for
is
a
it?
like a camera stand,
Okay. I thought that it was
it looks similar.
they do. All right, well, never mind about that. Well, yeah, I haven't hooked this one up to one because it just doesn't have one.
It does
But
have the punch out, and you can get the little like whip that plugs into the, because there is an antenna in there. It's like a sticker. It's like this one.
yeah,
This is what it looks like without the case. So it's got this and it's like stuck. So you can get this cord that goes to a RPSMA that will fit in the hole. And then you can also buy them with it already put in. Like that's what you have.
that's what these are punch outs. They're literally punch outs. Okay, I
Yeah.
have not done the thing adding, so you literally
It's
just put it in
fine.
plastic. Yeah, okay, I see.
It fits in your pocket like this, you know.
Yeah, the LilyGo is like it's not a consumer device. It's not a DIY hacker device only, but it's like for people who kind of, you know, it don't model it like it's going to be a full kit that like works all the time and does exactly what you want. Um, but yeah,
I
the other
personally also have like a big one on my camper. So then this one can reach that one, definitely. And then that one can reach everything. So having like a big one on the roof, plus the one that is convenient to carry around that doesn't have a big antenna, it will reach across the one on the roof to reach everything. So that's a good second project if you're looking for like the very simple intro.
a lot of these open source projects could use some help if you're a software engineer or even just a vibe coder. Um, like they really could use a lot of help and just some effort. And so, if you're unable to find a local group that you want to host a node with, that might be another great way to volunteer. Is just get yourself a LilyGo and maybe a small node, and then put a BBS up, and then contribute your changes or your upgrades or your like walkthroughs to one of the BBS things that are up.
Guys from the ham radio hobby are a lot of them are communication nerds. So if you get them interested in Meshtastic, that can be a great advantage. That's kind of how it started here in Argentina with ham radio guys setting up the nodes and the rest of us just kind of joining in.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, if you can get the nerds that don't really know about Meshtastic to use a Meshtastic radio, and then they get really into it and they do a whole thing like, that's you did that thing, you changed the world. So like these things are little, they feel little, like, oh, I just like get a thing in the mail and I like plug it in and now I did it. But yes, yes. And then, oh, and then I went and talked to some people who know about ham radios and now they all want to play with this thing. Okay, yes, you did organizing. You did make a meaningful difference and impact on the world by doing that. Especially when they get involved and they're like, oh, I love this thing. And they like build a whole bunch of nodes. Cool, that was you making ripples. So, I mean, this is actually how you do it. This is how you change the world. There's a little one person now knows about Meshtastic, right? It makes a huge difference.
Most
Yeah.
people who are licensed for amateur radio are allowed to use 40 times more power, so you can remove the restrictions that these come with and use much higher power levels to accomplish a lot more. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Liz brings this up, and it is important to know whether they should be in client mute. Okay, so there's client, I'm listening for stuff, and I'm maybe gonna send some stuff. There's client mute, I am not telling anyone I am here, but I'm listening for stuff if people already know who I am. So it doesn't broadcast until queried directly, basically. And then you've got router, which will pass on messages. It's a special I'll pass on messages protocol. And router router can hold on to messages using store and forward, which is like, I got a mail bag here, and anytime I find a letter, I keep it in my bag till I find the person. And then you've got a repeater, which really doesn't necessarily store. It doesn't find routes. It just repeats what it hears.
And it's
And
not
that's different.
advertising.
Yeah.
You won't see it on the list of nodes. You won't see it on the map or anything. It's a repeater.
All it does is repeat. So it has no, yeah. Chris, you had a hand
Yeah,
raised.
I was looking and I just found out that Meshtastic has like a list of people in different areas and states and countries. So like check out that link if you want to find someone in your area. Apparently there's like a bunch of different like Discords and links. That might even be a good idea to maybe for you, Liz, to use to maybe like see if they'll work with us.
Mm-hmm.
I thought. I'm not sure if it's like a GitHub repo that they could just add to, if it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean it's a big list.
What are your thoughts? Yeah.
I would say, you know, really, groups that are already a Meshtastic group, they're running nodes. And so we don't need to go be like, hey, you Meshtastic lovers, have you heard about Meshtastic? And we're preaching to the choir here, you know. But like community gardens, they haven't heard of him. Necessarily, not all amateur radio groups have heard about Meshtastic, right? We're trying to convert them to, the good word of Meshtastic, right? Like and so that list is helpful, especially if you want to find people nearby that can answer your questions or like might want to get involved in going to another group with you. And I bet you there are people in those groups that would go with you to a meetup, right? And it's pretty helpful if y'all put in the chat where you are. Like I saw the Portland crew was like, and now we're best friends, and so like there's like a group already around Portland. So if you could find a group of people who maybe want to go with you to a meetup where the
Well,
people are gonna be interested, but not
yeah,
already.
well, I was thinking like, do you have a local area, you can potentially see other nodes and then find those nodes. That would be where you could meet people. Not necessarily as like trying to convert them, no, but more like figuring out who your community is.
Yeah, definitely. And also there's a node map too
Yeah.
on either the phone or the thing. So how do I find people who use Meshtastic? Use Meshtastic. Um, it's pretty cool. It's like self.
A lot of them will have as their username or like their device name a bunch of letters and numbers, which is their call sign if they're certified. So like I'm not going to tell you mine because mine has my address on it, or it has my old address, but still. It's possible to look people up, and if they haven't set a vanity address, then it's going to tell you where they live. So like, they may or may not be okay with that, right? But like a lot of people use that as their name, and legally they have to if they're using amateur radio. You have to start the transmission with like your call sign, right? So that, and then a lot of people will have a URL as the description of the node, which will link to their amateur radio club. Like for example, if you're anywhere in like Sacramento or even the Bay Area, Mount Diablo is on there. Like you're gonna see Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club is on there because they have two at Meshtastic nodes at the top of Mount Diablo that can basically see like most of Northern California. And that's like so key to being able to bridge different valleys, different regions, is having those amateur radio clubs that already have repeaters there to be hosting Meshtastic nodes there. And there are a bunch of other examples that we found in the previous meeting of amateur radio clubs that have repeaters on other mountains, but don't have Meshtastic nodes there. So there's like these huge opportunities with amateur radio clubs to convert them to also including Meshtastic, because it's this perfect pairing that sort of also modernizes what they're doing in some ways. And it's empowered by all of these APRS backhaul solutions that they've already implemented, which is another thing that's oftentimes included in BBS systems that are being served by amateur radio clubs on Meshtastic, where you can send long distance message through the BBS to a different radio that connects to another BBS, which sends it back into Meshtastic, right? So like APRS is already bridging that for people in certain situations. And there's a lot of opportunity for reaching out to them and getting them to embrace that.
Somebody mentioned that I was incorrect, which I definitely was, about client mute. I thought client mute just forwarded. I was incorrect. It doesn't forward any traffic, actually. Client will forward traffics, but it counts towards the hop count. Client mute doesn't forward traffic at all. So, anyway, updated. Chris, did you have another? No, no worries.
I think like people should really read the documentation around profiles. If you just leave it on default settings, it's probably fine. If you want to change it, it's really complicated. You might break it, like you might make it impossible for yourself to access it. Like there are all kinds of things you can mess up if you try changing that. So like definitely read the documentation first. But there's also like modem profiles. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can change, and like it might be the right thing to do in your situation, or it might like super not be the right thing to do in your situation. So I would definitely read that before you try to change that. But probably the default settings are fine for most of that stuff.
Yeah, the good thing is you can also save your profile settings, and in case you break something and something stops working, which it happens a lot, you can recall the old settings and just import them again, and everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Same with your private key, because your like username is like a password, and it's used to encrypt the messages that you're sending back and forth. And so like you can back that up and make sure that you do if you're gonna like flash it, for example, so that you're able to you also would get back all of your like private group chat passwords that you've saved and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff beyond even just the profile settings that you do want to back up on a regular basis before you change stuff. And that's another thing too, where like
Sorry, feature on the
like a BBS wouldn't remember
on
who
the
you are
topic
if you have a
of
different private key.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
On the topic of encryption, you said they were able to start decrypting Meshtastic messages.
No.
No, okay,
It's
my bad then.
you have your private keys on your device that's also your username, right? So you're using the private keys to send messages to the person that it's for, or the public keys. And that encryption is the same encryption that's used for banking and cryptocurrency and all of that. So it's probably not broken. Probably like a state actor could break it. And in the future, it will definitely be broken with quantum computers and Grover's algorithm. When they're big enough, it's definitely broken.
Yeah.
And there, to some degree, AI is capable of understanding the content of encrypted messages, not necessarily exactly what they say, but like if there's enough of them in a conversation, it can tell you what it's about. And that's a big topic that we've
Oh,
both
so
done recent
that's
videos
okay.
about. But it can't like 100% break it. It can in certain circumstances it can tell you like kind of what they're talking about, the topics generally, but not necessarily like who's saying
Oh,
what or specific details.
okay, so when if we add to the encryption speaking in, riddles or something, that it's going to make it so much harder for it to just kind of guess what we're talking about.
We don't know.
Yeah, we actually don't know.
Mm.
We have found that they're pretty effective at I don't know, topic modeling. So we'll see. CJ did a really great video on it with like a visual that I feel like explained it really, really well. So I really
I
liked
love
it.
that one.
It's cool.
That penguin.
Somebody says the repeater nodes exclusively retransmit, so you end up getting packet collisions, reduced message delivery rates because of redundancy things. It also eats up some of the capacity, so and it's not visible, and it makes the network more volatile because you might get cycles and so apparently don't use
It's
repeat.
something that they're working on.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
and they're trying to implement like more complicated and smart like routing protocols and
Yeah.
there's some beta stuff. Like they did a whole project with Burning Man a couple of years ago where they had this like test version of Meshtastic for Burning Man that was like different in testing some of those ideas, and it's
Yeah.
something that's being actively worked on.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Let's see.
Are the messages saved anywhere if you're using a standalone device like the TDEC? Only on your device and on the person who sent it to you. Not anywhere else.
Yeah. If you're looking for more context, I mean, I think it's really one of the major link assembly pages that you're gonna find some of the context. But yeah. What does it take to end up on the Meshtastic map? You just gotta have a node on there, then you'll be on the map. I think the repeaters are invisible, but so if you have a client or server or any of that stuff, it's gonna show up on the map. You have to join, I think, a different mesh thing, which may involve like I think you can be silent, but I don't think that they really support you being a client and being completely invisible.
Yeah, that is the thing. To join the maps, you have to have TKTT enabled, which is basically connecting to the internet so they can see you, which kind of voids the purpose of Meshtastic unless you want to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're connected to or if you're within a few hops of a backhaul server that can push your location out, it will handle telling everyone about you. Um,
Oh,
if, but you have to be within some number of nodes, and it
I
has to
shared a
be.
couple of examples of that last week with the Sac Valley mesh in particular. They have like a flow chart of like it's really wild. It looks similar to how the city looks, and it's just a map of like where all the nodes are, right? And so you can see what they're able to see, and across however many hops they're able to hop, what they can see in the GPS that's being reported by all those devices. But it can also, I mean, you can set a static GPS address that's wrong too. So it's not necessarily true, right? But like that's what those people are saying is where they are. And I mean, I probably wouldn't want to, like, if I was doing one at home, I definitely wouldn't want to put like my home address on it, right? Like I would put like the nearest major intersection or something as the
Yeah,
location.
you can set the location precision So like I have mine set to like 1.9 miles, so that's much further than the node actually reaches. So you know, you just might get a very wrong location for me, basically, which is helpful. Like, it's cool if somebody knows which city I'm in, but you know, I don't want them to know exactly which block, you know. Yeah. So, of the folks who sent out, can I just get like a thumbs up or a hand raised to see if anybody who sent an email to a group from here, who actually went through? We got one. Jeju sent several. Ben did. Chris did. All right, that's three. That's three groups that were not connected before. All right. Yep, gonna internet the radio club proper. Okay, cool. 5, 6. All right, all right. No worries if you don't know what you're doing yet. All right, cool. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Dallas. There's probably a bunch of people out in Dallas. A bunch of military nerds out there, and ex-military nerds as well. So a lot of them know like the Meshtastic radio stuff as well.
Someone said the TDEC Pro is sold out. That's not the same thing as what we're talking about. This is the TDEC Plus. The TDEC Pro is a version of this that uses an e-ink display, which was not, I don't think it's actually been manufactured in like a large numbers yet. It's like very new. So that's a different thing.
And you're
That was
right, we
on
did raise
TikTok.
a bunch of money during this thing. Like, this is great. Wow. Okay. That's like this is crazy pants. Y'all, thanks. Like, this is so cool. We're gonna get to
Gonna be
cover
a
the
lot of
country in
radios.
Meshtastic nodes. Yes. Yes.
You know that paint company that they like, it's like painting the world and it
Yeah.
says like cover the world, like that, but radio.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm really, really exciting. It's just, yeah, like, you know, it has not been since the beginning of the internet that we had this much like citizen involvement in a networking thing, y'all. Like, and just people are excited to set up a network. I never thought I could get people to excited for setting up a WAN, but it's 2025 and the cool kids are starting radio free internet, literally. Missed opportunity. We could have called it radio free internet. Radio, comma, free internet.
The name was thought up by this guy in the woods in Tennessee who we went to this like meeting of people who are into building intentional communities, and to get to this place you have to meet them at this graveyard and bury your cell phone in a Faraday cage, and then they take you blindfolded to the secret food forest, which I like, it was like another half hour. I have no idea where it is. And we had a very interesting and productive meeting there. And one of the things that he came up with was that like we should create our own internet to connect forest communes without using the public internet or the cell phone towers. And he came up with a name, and I've kind of been thinking about it for a while. And Meshtastic seems like the answer, you know, like we could really do something like that. But that's where the name came from.
I'm having ChatGPT do the image. We'll see. Anyway, that's great. Cool. It's how we create taste, right? This is culture breaking out, y'all. You know, there's stuff that we must do and there's stuff that we do by unrestricted choice. And this is definitely an unrestricted choice. Like, also, yeah, we should definitely have patches of merch, obviously. Yeah, I think the Desert Discord probably the best social spot. I linked to it on mine, but it's like at the bottom, so if you scroll all the way down, it's there, and also on the high desert page. At the bottom, how do you join the Discord? Is there a Discord link on there? Maybe not.
Where?
On the
your
high
links?
page, yeah. I think down at
Probably.
the very bottom of my page is a link to the Discord.
Oh, this is a cool page. Animated text.
Mhm. That's very cyberpunk. Yeah, and yeah, if you're catching up, no worries. We've got some recordings up. We'll put more recordings around. If the system gets big enough to be jammed, or like if it gets big enough to attract negative attention, it's possible. But realistically, like it'll be a few years before they're really able to systematically build something that does radio jamming and deploy it to the various groups. Like if they deploy the National Guard, yeah, the National Guard just has radio jammers, but like the cops don't have radio jammers anymore that they know where they are. Maybe they're somewhere at the bottom in the basement. But they don't like remember how to use radio jammers because people are not using radios really.
But also, like, this is not something that would be easy to disrupt in that way. Because
Yeah.
this is like a super low power, like very ideal signal to noise ratio, very short, brief transmission across this broad spectrum. It would be really hard to do that. And also, it's mostly line of sight, which you can't jam, you know?
Mm.
So this is ideally suited to resisting that kind of interference.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely, someone said, what frequency should they purchase? Definitely 915. We're only using 915, and most people are using 915. 915 has the highest penetrating capacity, highest range, highest power level of any of the options that's available in the US. So definitely 915.
And Willow put a nice template in the chat. Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, the more widespread it is, the harder to kill. We're like lice. You can't put us down. Lice in a kindergarten classroom.
Dragon's teeth.
Oh, that's great. Let's see. Yeah. Um,
Someone said, when is it coming to Canada? It's already available in Canada. In the TikTok, someone said that. It's available in most countries. It will oftentimes use a different frequency depending on the local spectrum that is unlicensed. So this frequency spectrum used to be the 3G phone network, and then that lapsed and became public. And so now it's just for whoever wants to use it. If you're using this power level, you don't need any kind of license. So it's just open. And that's where Laura jumped in, and then Meshtastic on top of that. So that is true for most countries, but it may be different depending on where you are. And if you just Google Meshtastic nodes, whatever country, then they'll have the details. But if you can get the 915, get the 915.
yeah. Could you do 3G level transfers? It's harder to do stuff like that. I don't know if y'all remember, you could not stream video on 3G. Like, you couldn't really stream music on 3G. Like, you could download some to your cache, but you couldn't really stream music on it. And if you got 20 people in an area trying to use it, the whole thing was like totally full. And so, you remember back in the days when cell phones were, not as reliable. So,
But they are working on a including in Meshtastic the ability to send like a very short voice clip that is not going to work for like music or anything, but it's like a super compressed format that they're talking about implementing. So you could do like, like WhatsApp style, like where you send a short voice message. So that may be a feature in the near future.
Yeah. And if you have an Android phone and you connect your radio with the phone, you can install ATAC, Android Tactical Assault Kit, which sounds like you're gonna go assault some people, but it's really just a messenger, with some like GPS things on it. But yeah, that one is, it's got a lot more features and functionality, built into it than that Meshtastic clients and stuff do.
You
So
can remote control your drones on there and stuff.
yeah, you could control kamikaze drones on there. It's great. It's great.
Someone said, is it native Android protocol? It's actually something that was developed by the military and then open sourced. So this is like the civilian version of it. And so it's like you can see a map and like designate targets for like drone strikes or whatever. But like this one is more like send the drone to take pictures of the house that you're gonna sell or something. Like it controls all that kind of stuff for like sending drones around and telling your friends how to do the paintball. Like you go here, you go here. You can draw like little arrows and stuff on the map and see where people are, and it's pretty
Yeah,
wild.
they do use it for real paintball. Like it's actually a big deal in the paintball community, and people who are very into paintball are like, ATAC, CivTech, yeah, I'm really in the military. And like they are using military technology, but so is TCP/IP, so I don't know, you know.
Were you saying ATAC can do it already for sending voice messages?
Yeah, I can do voice messages. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've never used it. Should probably try it.
Yeah, it's pretty decent. I've looked at it. There's not backdoors. It's fine. So, you know, um, unless there's not obvious backdoors. Esoteric backdoors, but I've looked at it and there's not obvious backdoors. So, but yeah, yeah, I saw Reticulum is like no,
Alternative
Reticulum
software.
is a real thing, right? It's like,
It's like an alternative to Meshtastic.
okay. Oh yeah, there's like people comparing them. Oh, it says it's cryptography based, but it's not cryptocurrency. It's just cryptography. I mean, Meshtastic is also cryptography based, but I don't know what we mean by that. What it's based. It's cryptography based. Like the new phrase, the new word based, like it's cryptography and it's so based, y'all. Like I don't know.
My understanding was it's like there's more hierarchical control of routing, and it's
Mhm.
like it tries to have more efficient routing of messages and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's also like a much smaller community.
Yeah.
A bunch of those other like there are a bunch of like really compelling alternatives to Meshtastic that are already dead, like disaster radio, and so it's like the vast majority of LoRa nodes are running Meshtastic. So like it's open source. We can totally make it better. We can add on to it. We can change anything we want. That's allowed, but it's the one that's the vast majority of people are using. So
Yeah.
and they are working on all of those problems that these other ones are trying to address. So
Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm seeing most folks join the thing, filtering into the rooms, the like regional rooms. I think that would be a good next step if you're new or if you know what you're doing and you can explain what to do to other people. Um, it's easier for folks, especially who are new, to ask questions in a small channel with not a whole bunch of people in there. I bet you there's some people in this room that are like, I don't want to ask any questions that I should know already. It's fine if you don't know the answers, but I understand if you don't want to ask them. So, joining those channels, especially if you're more advanced, will be really helpful for the newbies to be able to ask questions to just a smaller room, than the giant room of like 100 people, right? Um, it was many years of being an engineer before I could ask a question I thought might be dumb in front of more than 5 people. So, fully get it, fully get it. All right. Reticulum is a whole stack solution versus ATEC. Maybe. I haven't compared them directly personally, so I don't know. But there's a guy who wrote a blog post at the end January of last year, and maybe it will be slightly still relevant. Cool. Bear tooth. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, ATEX brought in a lot of stuff across the open source network. And again, if that means things to you, if all of that stuff means a thing, they could probably use your help on some issues or with some development. And if you're like, oh, I could do it, but I don't really have the time, let me just encourage you again to try vibe coding this stuff. Like, again, review the code. I'm not saying just dump a bunch of garbage into the PRs, but you know, if you don't want to remember all the method names, like most of the AIs can handle that stuff. So, uh, do vibe code it out, especially if you want there to be a feature that there isn't, a button in the UI that there isn't. You want to add some support for something, vibe code it out. It does understand the protocol. It has been around for a minute, so yeah. I definitely wrote a BBS node with Claude like while we were in here, and also a librarian AI bridge interface. So, you know, it's totally fine.
That's something too where I think like it would be like I've done a little bit of like RAG pipeline stuff, but if people have a lot more experience with that or with like prompt engineering around like getting the kinds of answers that we want out of it, like that's, you know, I would love to have like a bunch of help with all of these little sub projects and
That's us. Let's do it.
Huh?
I said multiverse crew, that's us. Let's do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you're in one of my classes, you know we've been talking about this stuff. Um, you know that there's been a call to action on this. So yeah, if you want to help with the librarian interface, we'll probably do some of that. Let's see, it's Thursday next week actually with the MCP stuff. So yeah, we'll probably do some of that next week actually. So
Cool.
Phil's working on it literally right now. It's great. Thanks, Phil. Cool.
What's MCP in this context?
Oh, model context protocol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Who
Haven't
did who
figured it
who
out.
just did the release about that?
Yeah, it came out. When did it come out?
There was like something in the news about that today though.
Yeah, time is very broken. I don't know. Everything's moving really, really fast. It feels like it came out a year ago, but it definitely didn't. So, I think it might be less than a month old. But
Google is embracing it. That was the news
oh yeah,
today.
yeah, it's
Anthropic
pretty
came
much
up with it.
yeah, it's like a standard tools thing, and so pretty much everybody's snapping to that.
Facebook also has their own, so I wonder if they'll, especially now that they like really fucked up Llama 4, like if they'll adopt the open standard.
Yeah, that MOE model wasn't a good move.
And they lied about the metrics. Did you see that it like came out that they made it all up? It wasn't true.
Facebook lied about metrics?
They
What?
pulled their VW. They stuck something in the tailpipe.
What? Really? What? What? Yeah. The AI arena let them lie? What?
Well, it's funny because it's like these are open source tests that everyone can run.
And read and write. Yeah, it turns out IO psychology is not a really common skill. It feels like it is, but it isn't.
You know that I have that chart that I tried to popularize of like resource requirements versus like scores on standardized testing, and there's this it's converging in two directions. Like
Mm-hmm.
you need a data center or like it'll run on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really disappointing to see this generation of llama only having the high resource requirement, like multi-hundred gig resource requirement, you know,
Yeah.
that are moving towards that like consolidated corporate control and away from the like it's open source, but nobody can run it unless they have a data center company, you know.
Right. Meanwhile, you have China giving us the best models for free, like every day.
Yeah, it's
Oh, you
like,
thought you made a better model? Here's another one. Oh, another. Here's another one.
but it's not even just that they're like it's like Alibaba versus DeepSeek, right? Like that's the actual competition that's happening that's giving us edge models that work well for people. It's like
Yeah,
China versus China.
it's great. I love it. I'm thrilled. What would we do without our colleagues there? I don't know. We'd be behind.
It's
There's
also like such an exciting example where like we've talked before about how like it's exciting to look for things that work really well from communist ways of thinking that couldn't happen under capitalism, right? Like corporations developing AI can only converge on things that are only useful for rentiers with
yeah,
control of data centers, right? Like they could never like whatever motive Facebook had for releasing like a 3 and a 7 billion parameter model, that motive was purely like to disrupt other players from entering the market, right? Like they didn't actually want people to have that. And now
right.
you see them switching to these multi-hundred billion parameter models only. But
Yeah.
China is like, we would love for everyone to have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the ones everyone's running on their, you know,
Indeed.
home coding and stuff is like embodying our political perspective.
Yep. As it turns out. I think, yeah, you don't actually need to be brilliant to do a lot of super important things also, and so I think we're also running into that as well. Like, if you're pretty okay at stuff, actually you can be very helpful. And, if like two or three people who are pretty okay can be as good as something that's, really, really good, then it's the same thing essentially. So, yeah, pretty good opening of these things. Um,
Somebody asked about the link for joining like regional channels. We have the Discord, so anyone can create their own like regional channel. So you can make one for anywhere and people.
oh yeah, here's the link to the Discord. Yeah. Of course, let us not fetishize any empire, but they're doing some things. Um, yeah. Right. Yeah, no ethical consumption, period, the end. In a sense.
Someone said that installing Internet in a Box on a Raspberry Pi 5, you really don't need like a 5 for that, but it'll work.
It will work. We'll handle it.
It will work on 10% of that.
Yeah. You could probably host maybe one of the DeepSeek fine tunes if you really want a fancy one, but honestly 3.1 is fine and it uses tools and stuff pretty well. If
You
you
can
want,
the new there's a one of the new 5s has 16 gigs of RAM. You can run like a lot of models on that if you want to run the AI.
here is a collab notebook for a fancy rag if you would like, that I did a while back. So if anybody's trying to do fancy rag, there's some code that will use a FICE hierarchical navigable small worlds index to index whatever you want. So if you want to use that, that code can be pulled offline and then pointed at an open source model instead of just whatever random closed source model I think is in that.
Someone said, is there an advantage to having the AI hat for a Raspberry Pi? Probably not.
Not really.
The problem with that is the bandwidth limitation of the connection to it is it's just you like if you have it in system memory, it's gonna be faster.
Yeah.
The TOPS is higher. If you're running something like if you're running a small model that you can offload completely to NPU, like image classification, for example, is like the really common one, where like those little Google TPUs that fit in an M2 slot, which I have somewhere, those are great for like an 8 megabyte model, and it'll do that crazy fast. But the CPU is fine on the Raspberry Pi, and especially for these new models where they have like so many efficiency improvements and fine-tuning steps that have been done. Like, I think people would be shocked how fast any of the distill models will run on like a cell phone
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or a Raspberry.
Yeah, if like you're upgrading to the Pixel 9 from the Pixel 7, you can get like 30 tokens a second with Llama 3.1, which is all you need. So, you know, like 7B, but yeah. Or 3B, I don't know. Yeah.
Somebody posted the TC2 BBS mesh. That's the one that we were talking about. That's like the big open source one, but there are some obvious opportunities for improvement if you were starting over. And like one of them being like that one needs custom hardware. You have to, and it costs a lot more than a Raspberry Pi would cost. So like if you were doing it today, you probably wouldn't want to use like the custom hardware they have that's so much more expensive. And like probably there's a version of it that like if you didn't write it in Python, like you could actually run it on the Meshtastic node and it wouldn't even need like a separate computer at all.
That's a video about why you should code in C. So set to the Little Mermaid. You know, it's a classic. um yeah, yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming, everyone. I'm enjoying it. You know, we just wanna mop up on questions or concerns, thoughts, some cool thing you did while we were talking, people you want to reach out to, anything like that. And we will run another session next week, focused on operational security. We'll run a couple of sessions like this. We'll also talk about Meshtastic security, operational security. I'll probably bring. I'll try to get ATAC running on that like burner Android phone I bought for this very purpose. So we will see what happens. But I'm also trying to like not burn the burner by running it at my house. So we'll see what happens.
Wow, someone said in the TikTok, they tagged both of us and said they bought 3 PowerEdge R720s with 512 gigs of system RAM each and 2 Tesla cards each. I assume they made P40s. P40 is like the most RAM you can get in one of the Tesla generation cards, I think. And that is exactly what I have for my AI server. So highly recommend that build.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they want to
take
like offer them for people to use.
Oh yeah, you have the like CJ's AI toolbox as like a website. Right, yeah, here we go. There's that. CJ's got a lot of stuff about AI on there.
We're gonna
CJ.
start doing more videos about like different algorithms people can use other than LLMs that are also like potentially more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to do some classification, some neural re-rankers. I've been getting real into search lately. You know, you might need to write a search algorithm or a search backend for running your internet in a box thing if you want to hook it up to an AI. So I dropped that link in the chat, the Google Colab notebook. But if you want more info, I'll put some on the internet sometime soon. So yeah.
Did you already respond to the someone said are the meetings always on Thursday at this time?
Yeah, you haven't responded, but yes, they are on Thursday at this time. We'll probably take a 2-week break after next week, and then at least a 2-week break, and then I'll actually discuss get not voluntel TJ or CJ what we're gonna do, but we'll probably take a quick break and then get back to it and run another sequence of these. Um, you know, we want to get the most interested folks in get the things deployed. But I think another group of people is gonna want to go through this from the beginning. So yeah, that's the plan.
And hopefully some of the projects we've talked about will be further along and we can sort of like have a follow-up about it, you know?
Yeah.
I really think we should do like a talking about current events thing too.
I think we should. I would
Cool.
do like a podcast with you, CJ. That would be dope. Like a community nerd out on AI thing. I think that would be fun. Yeah.
Is some people ask, is there like a way to catch up on all of this? This is all going to be on YouTube. Some of it already is, and the rest of it is being worked on and edited, so it'll be up to.
That will be coming out soon. Let's see.
And we probably already mentioned, but next week we're doing OPSEC. So that's a topic that a lot of people have been interested in. This is the first of these that we have not gone down a lot of OPSEC rabbit trails. So
Yeah.
it'll be a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have questions about OPSEC. Totally fine to bring those up, and we will get really deep into them next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to cover a lot of different threat models, but the threat landscape is changing really rapidly, so I'm like defaulting to higher end threat models for people that I wouldn't normally say needed to do that back in the before times. So, we'll work on it. We'll get that's also partly why we're doing this thing. There's not a cell phone you can buy that will magically keep you safe. There's no security fairy dust that you can sprinkle on anything. And there's no VPN you can purchase. Security is not a product, it is a process, and it is a continuous process. It is unceasing. This ain't a scene. It's an arms race. So, we'll get there. Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else? Anyone's got?
Oh God.
I'm gonna eat soon. I can smell.
Someone asked about what if you use a Chinese phone and therefore one that's not compromised by Prism? Prism is not part of the phone. Prism is part of the internet. It doesn't matter what kind of device you have. If you're using the internet, everything that you're saying and doing is being recorded by the NSA. So if you use a word like gender, then they automatically will delete it. So this is the key to OPSEC with Prism.
Yeah.
Justice, injustice,
diversity, genetic diversity,
Black people,
Black,
is all
BIPOC.
deleted. We're not out of their database.
Yeah. The way to stay safe. Yeah. If you are wanting like just a quick thing, you want Prism break.org. Is it .org? It is. This is I sometimes recommend this, but it's security fairy dust. Like you can't just download a different app and now Prism doesn't happen. It's like you can use these and not those, but also as soon as there's a list of safe things, then the government targets that list of safe things, and goes after, the things that are supposedly safe, because people think they're safe. So, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
I think part of the advantage in this project is like bringing up like PAX counter, for example. Like there's so many things that people are not aware that they're doing that like exposes them to risk, right? And so some of the things that we're doing could expose you to like more people being aware. Like if you set this up wrong, people will know where you live, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's also true of your cell phone. And it's trivially easy to like use the devices that you already have in the room with you to pinpoint exactly where everyone in your neighborhood is and watch them move around during the day and know when they've left the house. And like that's all easy, right? And like becoming aware of the fact that that's easy helps us to be more aware of like how we can protect ourselves from the most obvious pitfalls that we're potentially exposing ourselves to with this kind of stuff. So some of it's scary, but like I feel like it should be scary not to know, right?
It's true. It's scarier not to know and then find out how you got, you know. I'd rather you find out how you might get got and then not get got. So, yeah. Your grandmother can't buy 30 cell phones and be in 30 different places. You know, there's some stuff you can do. That said, exposing yourself to risk by giving out a bunch of cell phones that are in your name it's a risk, you know. And if there's any reason, if you've forgotten to dot an I or cross a T somewhere, that could be a pretty intense risk. So just understand your own personal risk profile. We'll do some of that next week, but understand that risk profile and yeah. All the cryptocurrency is bullshit. I don't know. Like Monero's bullshit. Sorry. I'll argue with it. It's about it until I'm blue in the face, but
100%.
yeah. There's no like they started off and they were like secure, anonymous, and now they're like transparent and unchangeable, and those are fully different values that mean that they were never able to actualize on the first value in the first place and probably never intended to. So,
Yeah.
there's no there's no there's no reason to use cryptocurrency unless you're doing fascism, and then you should definitely put it on the blockchain. I hope
I saw that video.
they do that so much. Like, I mean, they're gonna be jerks about it. They're gonna do the things anyway. If they're
Yeah.
gonna do it on the blockchain.
So someone in the TikTok said, "How does this project differ from amateur radio clubs? Is it just that it's encrypted?" So this is a global mesh network. Anyone can buy one. There's no licensing required. There's no like if you buy one of these, you're a part of it, and you can text people across each other to whoever you're trying to reach, right? Like, so it's very different from amateur radio. It's a network of devices that can send secure communications to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do all kinds of like interesting, this kind of behind me stuff, So, but we would love for amateur radio clubs to get involved.
Yeah, they're the most likely to want to get involved. And yeah, 3 phones come with fees now. Yeah. Well, let's see. Anyone excited to build up with y'all too? Yeah, I always like to say, like, have a security party. Hey everyone, let's come over to my house and hang out, and it will be so fun and cool. And then you spend some of the time, surprise, tricked you, haha, it's time to cybersecurity. Let's turn off location services on your phone. Let's set up your signal properly with disappearing messages. So very much like, if you had not sent those emails and then in this meeting you sent the emails because we said, hey, do it now. That's what you can do with the cybersecurity party. Because I could talk on TikTok till I'm blue in the face and be like, you got to change now. You got to do a thing now. And people are like, oh, I definitely will. And then they scroll and it's gone. So like, get them in the room and be like, hey, while we're here, why don't we just save our digital footprint? You know, just as friends, like you do as friends. Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that you it's correct to say that amateur radio cannot use encryption, but also that there's kind of like, legally speaking, it is true to say that if you're using Meshtastic at levels higher than the stock level, it would not be legal to use encryption. It is true to say that.
Mhm.
And also people do.
And also, yeah.
Like, there's no way I can see Diablo Mountain from my house at 250 milliamp hours, right?
Yeah.
Like, millions of people can see Diablo Mountain from their house. That is not 250 milliamp hours.
Yeah. I also need a Faraday cage so I can do stuff with burner phones. It's the only safe way to do stuff with burner phones. Anyway, all right.
So, see everybody next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna go have some dinner. Nice to hang out. And
Yeah.
I'll see you.
See you for OPSEC without a special guest except for all of you
Yeah, we're special. That's all we
next
need.
time.
Cool. All right, I'll see ya.